Hi everyone, it's King 25 PS here. I'm gonna be talking about the lore and pretty much the story behind Expedition 33, the past before the story happens, pretty much the game. Uh, there is a lot of I wouldn't say misinformation, but I feel like there's a lot of information that people get from it but also are missing the mark, or at least in my opinion. So this is pretty much going to be an opinion of Expedition 33, in my opinion, and I just love the way that it's layered. So this is my actually first video that's going to be a lore based one and what I got from it. So this is all just going to be before you start the game, before you start Expedition 33, everything that happens in the past, because a lot of it doesn't get told directly to you. You get it all by the journals, the optional bosses, and everything like that. I have a few friends that are confused on what it happens, and I'm talking to them about everything that I've went through. So again, this is about Expedition 33. Very big, major spoilers. If anybody's still playing it and doesn't want to know this, this is the warning. Major spoilers. I'm gonna talk about the range of everything, from the ending to the beginning, and so this is not your video. You've been warned. Um, so let's get right into it. The first thing I'm gonna talk about, which I was debating if I should have talked about it, is because you don't really get told much about it, is Renoir's past. So we don't really get much about his background or his past. Renoir, in my opinion, is actually a noble or someone in nobility. And why do I think that? Uh, if you go back to the Verso's ending has his date of birth on it, on his tombstone. So his date of birth is, I have a little cheat sheet over here, so I'm using it. It is 1879. So he was born in 1879. 1879 was back in the day. So nobility and people are still, they're not in power because the French Revolution happened, but they're still like alive and well. And that time, the manor that they live in, the family, it's a manor, it's a mansion pretty much. And who else has that kind of money at that time besides nobility? Um, so this is part of where it's my own opinion of that. Renoir's family is part of the nobility, and again, I didn't want to put this out there, but it's going to tie in later on with my explanation of the story later. So pretty much is we're getting at where Noir is a noble. Uh, Something happens there where he meets the paintress Elaine, and she saves him from it. We don't know what that something is or what happened, but they save each other, or she saves him, and they get married eventually. And then we're moving forward into the timeline where the story kind of begins. Is when they have kids. They have Celia and Verso. They're around the same age. So do we have them happening? Do we have them growing up together and learn from the mom to be a painter? Because the mom's a painter. She's the main one that's a painter. Um, so Verso and Clea pretty much go and make the canvas of the world of Expedition. Pretty much when they're kids, they make the world. They make the gestrels, the grandes, the people. They make Eskia, Monoko, Noko. They make everybody, right, as their kids. They're making these things. Uh, so this is one of the major things that they do as kids. They make the paintings. They make it and everything's good at the time. Some time passes, and everybody's coexisting and stuff like that. A few years pass in the real world, and the writers, uh, somehow I believe they trick Alicia into something, and they cause the fire of the mansion, which takes Verso's life at that point. At the same time, this is happening. Well, not the same time, but like that happens. I believe a lot of turning points happen at this point. One, the mom Aline, who is the paintress. I don't know if she's the one that puts a piece of the Verso soul into the painting or not. Uh, I'm pretty sure they did explain it, but I can't really recall if they did or not. Tell you who put it in, but somehow Verso's soul, a piece of his soul, gets put into the painting um, while everything's happening there. Um, and while that happens, the fire happens. Verso dies. His piece of the soul gets put into the painting. The the mom Elaine ends up joining the painting. Um, ends up joining the painting or going into the painting and makes a fake family. At the same time, Celia, there's Clea, stops going into the painting to try to get revenge on the writers for killing the brother. Um, so those two moments are kind of happening at the same time, where she stops going into the painting, and we know this that she stops going into the painting because Francois was her best friend. I don't know if I told they say they made Francois too. I said they did make Escape. Clea made Francois with Verso. Francois was her best friend. Or Francois considered her his best friend. So that's why he's a grump. When you first meet him, he's really grumpy. He hasn't seen her in like years, decades. So he's upset and sad that he hasn't seen her. But anyway, she stops going into painting. The mom Elaine starts joining the painting, and she makes a fake family to go get over the grief of losing Verso. And while in there, she gets in pretty much in immersed in the painting and the lie of that's happening. That's when the dad Renoir can't. He's worried about her. She saved him once, so he goes into the painting to try to save her, uh, to get her out and deal with this situation. So he goes out. He goes in there. He's worried about her. Uh, so this is I don't know how much time passes or how long they do. They never specify. Anyway, once the mom and dad are in there, and he's trying to convince her to go out, the first major like breaking point in the series and part of the past, which is a major event that happens in the past, is the fracture. So they do explain it later on that the fracture, what happens is the mom and dad fight. Uh, Elaine and Renoir fight, the real ones. They fight inside the painting and they destroy Haute Lumiere when that fight. That causes the mom to be she wins the fight because she's a better painter. She's the one that originally was a painter. So when they fight, she wins. Uh, Elaine traps Renoir in the bottom of the monolith and seals him in there, traps him in there. After that fight is over, um, as the mom goes to the top of the monolith, I guess that's where all the chroma is pretty much concentrated at. So she stays up there, making sure that she gathers all the chroma and stuff like that. And I believe she also is the one that rebuilt. moves the new Lumiere in this moment to outside the continent. She moves it away from old Lumiere and just leaves old Lumiere and leaves the people of that city there pretty much on the side. And everything's still technically fine. Nothing's crazy is happening. It's just that the whole fracture happened and the gramages are still not pretty much happening at that time. Um, so again, they don't tell you specifically how long it takes between between these times. So at some point, the dad locked in the bottom of the monolith makes thinks of a way to free or like get her out of the painting. So he thinks of multiple things. One he thinks of is making the axons. So Renoir's drafts, that is part of him. That's his area of the monolith that he's practicing making the axons. He's trying to he's trying to become a better painter to make the axons because Elaine already has her axon because she's a better painter. So she already has the paintress, the one that's in the monolith. She already knows how to make them. So she already probably already had it at that fight when they have the fight and the fracture. So down there in the drafts, you see in the drafts when you go to Renoir drafts, you see the dead like unfinished axons. So those are his drafts of pretty much making the axons. So he's having trouble trying to figure out how to do it. So I believe at this point, um, uh, there's multiple things happening at that point where the dad gets trapped. Where the dad trapped, he's trying to figure out. Renard's trapped, and he's trying to figure out how to make these axons. Uh, at that same time, Clea is out in the real world, mad at the dad because mad at Renoir because he's still in the painting, while she needs him to come help her fight against the writers to get the revenge. And this is where I go back to the beginning where I said Renoir's morbidity, um, where um, where Clea needs the dad Renoir to come and help her. So back in the day, like everybody knows what nobility is. Like the head of the family is always in charge of the family and making sure that everybody's like everything that they're the ones that decide everything. So who's gonna be the head of the family if he's noble? It's gonna be Renoir. Uh, so she needs him to do pretty much anything. So she's mad that he's still in the painting. And this is also a callback to why I think their nobility is that he needs to. He's as the head of the family. You need to do stuff like that. And then I forgot to talk about it, but when the writers killed um, Verso, like we don't get too much about that. Um, we don't get too much about the writers and anything like that. But why would somebody fight somebody else like that, or try to assassinate somebody or their family? So there's two options. One, they could just be rival families. They could just always be rivals, but that which is pretty much what they imply. But also, they could be a rival uh, noble family, which nobles in history are always gunning for each other and trying to do that. So this is where, in my head, and where it connects to like they're part of nobility, and this is what happens. And that's why, like I said, Clea needs Renoir to be there because he's the one that makes the final decisions for the family at the end for nobility. The head of the household is the one that does all that stuff. So there's a bunch of things happening. She's mad that that's happening, so she's plotting her own stuff outside in the real world, while Renoir is in the monolith drafting his axons. Um, at that same time, he's also He also thinks of the Gramage. Like if he can't make her get out of the painting, Elaine to get out of the painting of her own will, or he can't stop her. He just thinks I need to delete it all. I just need to erase everything. And the Gramage starts. The Gramages start at the beginning. So I believe they weren't like instant instantly like everybody in a certain age, because you got to think about it. Uh, After the fracture, nobody, the expeditions hadn't started. After it wasn't, it didn't happen right after the fracture. At least that's what we're not told that it's immediate. So I believe that for a good while, the garages weren't happening. Everybody was living in New Lumiere, and and pretty much everybody was living life. And then all of a sudden, people just started dying and disappearing into garage, into a garage, um, and pretty much, who else would they think of that would do that to them? Um, Besides the paintress, right? People that are alive, they're like, this pretty much the paintress is pretty much their god. They made shrines to her because in the continent, remember, there's like shrines to her in the continent, in the Stone Veil. They talk about how like why would people make shrines to the paintress? Because people, I'm assuming people thought of them as their god and stuff like that, and the people that the goddess that was protecting them. And then all of a sudden, like they started doing, people started disappearing and garages, and that's when the expeditions start to stop the garages and to figure out what's going on. So that's when Expedition Zero comes in. Um, at this same time, like I said before, Clea was pissed off already that Renoir is staying in there for too long. So, how I said earlier, there's a bunch of stuff happening at the same time, and especially in this part where Expedition Zero is happening, where everything after the fracture, there's a bunch of stuff happening at the same time in the real world, in the painted world, uh, and with the painted family. Like I said, like how the mom made it painted family. So we have a painted Renoir, we have a painted Alicia, a painted Clea, and a painted Verso. That's the fake family that she made. So at that point, uh, the painted Renoir and painted Verso joined the expedition to pretty much spy on them and see what they're going to try to do or anything like that. Okay, so when this expedition is starting, at the same time, Clea thinks of a plan. She joins, she gets into the painting. She gives Verso's friend Simon, who is painted Clea's like lover at the time. So at some point, she tricks him as this coming up as like a paintress that looks like her. So he wanted to believe her because he even says it in a journal that a paintress approached him and he looked exactly like Clea. So so she tells him like Clea tells him that, oh, you need to go. The gramages are happening by Elena the paintress. You need to go and slay her. Here's some she paints over him and gives him powers to kill axons and kills axons and get past the barrier. So again, this is all happening at the same time of what's happening. So same time this is happening, Renoir, the real Renoir, finally, I would say, finally figures out how to make his axons. He makes four axons. One that you see dead in one in you see that dies in Old Lumiere. Cyrene, the Reacher, and Vices. So also with these, I'm gonna actually go into detail with them because I've seen a lot of posts and stuff about who they represent, because each of them represents somebody. And going back into it, like some people are saying, the one in Old Lumiere, that one's Kalea's Axon, but in my opinion, it is not. It's actually Renoir's, because going back into nobility, into it, what's a noble? A nobility with a manor. Usually, they're a lord of a town or a mayor. They're considered like a mayor, right? But going back to that, what's the old Lumiere Axon have on his back? He has a city. It's not a manor or things. People are saying like, oh, it's Clea because she's pretty much holding the weight of her family on the back, stuff like that, like the world on their back. But that would make more. It wouldn't make sense with a whole like city and stuff like that. Um, so as a lord or a noble and a lord of a town and a city, uh, Renoir would be actually more likely to be it. Like again, like I said, going back into the noble. If he's a noble, that makes more sense, right? And then um, what is it? And also the axon is a male axon. Usually they represent like they're representing each other. Like a female character usually has a female axon. A male character would have a male axon. Uh, so I believe that the that one is Renoir's axon, his representation of himself. Also, it goes well how the mom saved him. What he could be burdened on his shoulders, the town, and that's what the mom saved him from. Being the burden of having the whole city on his back, pretty much. Um, but yeah, so he makes that one. I just want to clarify that because again, this is my opinion of it, and I've seen a lot of like Reddit posts and like videos that say differently. So this is why I'm talking more into the axons. So Serenade is Clea at the end, and some people think that one's Elaine, but no, I want to say that one's Clea because one, when you you know what? I'll go back to that one because that one does have to talk about the. I will talk more into it right now. Clea, Serenade is Clea, Verso is the Vices, uh, the Vices, and Reacher is Mael, and then the Paintress pretty much is the Paintress is Elaine, the one that's in the monolith. So that's all five of them. All five axons are representing of each of the family members. Um, so he makes those axons, right? At the same time, Clay is plotting to have Simon go kill the mom. She gave him the power and stuff like that. And like this is all happening at the same time. So there's so much stuff stacking from the real world and the painted world. And then at that same time, she repaints her painted version. She repaints the painted version of Clea that the mom Elaine made. She does this so she won't have to be in the painting Neverons. She paints over herself so that she becomes a Neveron pretty much painting machine, which you see and you fight her in the flying mansion later in the story. So there's where I was going to come back to it. Clea, Clea on the Axon, where I want to say she's Serenade because when you're fighting Serenade, she does that motions with her hands, like moving them up and down and dancing. Clea, when you fight her in the flying manner, she's doing that same hand movements. So that pretty much represents like their back, like the same image. She's dancing. She does that. She doesn't have that weight on on her shoulders. Plus, the Renoir is already in the painting. She doesn't know what's going on in the real world at this moment or at this time. So that would make no sense to, in my opinion, of why the one in old Lumiere would be Clea's Axon. Also, dang, I lost my train of thought of there. Um, um, dang, I just blanked right there. Um, anyway, just we'll just move on past that. Uh, at this point, so there, Simon's going. He goes to fight the Paintress. This is like I said, all those three, four events are happening at the almost the exact same time. Simon goes to the Paintress to fight her. While he's doing that, he ends up fighting the Axon in Lumiere and kills it. Goes to the Paintress, and then the Paintress tells her like, "No, I'm not the one that's keep. I'm the one that's actually tells him the truth that he's the one that's she's the one that's keeping the painted Clea alive, and that the Renoir, real Noir, is the one doing the gramages and doing that stuff." So he heads down there to the Renoir Drass, and at this point, I believe they fight, and he loses his arm. A lot of people say that Expedition 60 is the one that tears off his arm because in one of the journals they say they're going to go down there. But like when you get to the Abyss area, there's no expedition members that are like pretty much stoned there. In the Renoir drafts, you do see some. So I believe with those contact clues that Renoir fights him. He cuts off his arm and sees that how strong he is. He throws him into the abyss and imprisons him there. And that's where we find Simon later with his mind corrupted because the real Renoir ends up like wearing him down pretty much after the fight, and he just stuck there. And everything that transpires after that pretty much gets like called off. The Expedition Zero continues. They reach the monolith. They find out the truth. Uh, Verso and Painted Renoir tell them what's really happening. The people that don't accept it or don't believe them, I believe, get killed. Um, at that point, all the scheming and most of like the adventures, plotting and stuff is coming fizzling out. At this point, after that happens, time passes. After that, that's when you wake up. That's when the prologue from Act Three comes in, where you Alicia at the beginning, and you talk to Clea and how she tells you like, "Hey, you need to go help Renoir to get out because I need his help fighting the riders." Um, so that's the moment where after all that happens, this is where it kind of begins for their story. Um, as Alicia is going in there into the painting, the mom's emotions and control of the chroma overrides and repaints Clea. I mean, um, Alicia, and she becomes Mael. And then from there, it pretty much just trickles to what happens, the remaining stuff, what happens with the journals. So the expeditions don't pick up again after Expedition Zero. They don't pick up until like 84. They start up again at 84. And then from there, they don't do it for another like 3 4 years, and again another 3 4 years. It doesn't pick back up until like Expedition, I believe, like 70. Um, that's when they start doing it every year after that. but at that same time, Paint and Renoir is stopping them. Like they let them figure out a little bit. If they get too close, Paint and Renoir is going and pretty much kills them. And at that point, we're back all the way into the present, where Expedition 33 starts. Um, and that's pretty much the whole backstory and past lore that I wanted to cover. Because we're ready to come back to Expedition 33. So all that is where my opinion, everything that happened in between, and the most important things that happened in events uh, that led you up to Expedition 33. Like I said, I made this video, my first ever lore pretty much video, because like I said, some friends, I was talking to some friends and they just couldn't wrap their heads around it sometimes, and I was trying to explain it to people, and I just wanted anybody to get a better grasp on understanding it. If you're having difficulty, difficulty, difficult. I can't even say that word. Jesus Christ, difficulty understanding the lore, and couldn't put two and two together. Jesus, I just can't talk today. Uh, but yeah, and that's pretty much the ending of the lore. I really hope that helps any gamer understand like the story more, and for anybody, I want to tie it in with that. I hope that helps any gamer understand the story more, and for those who come after, right?